studies have shown probably 80% of patients utilize some form of quote unquote alternative. And I hate that word because I think of it as collaborative or integrative. Basically, about 80% of patients use a therapy outside of standard of care. And probably about 80% of that 80% do not share that with their physicians.
Cue music. Places, everybody places. We're starting in 3, 2.
Welcome to the Autoimmune Hour, where we look at the rise of autoimmune disorders. I've brought together top experts that range from doctors, specialists, nutritionists, researchers, and even those recovering from autoimmune to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information about autoimmunity and how to live your life uninterrupted.
Thank you for joining us here on the Autoimmune Hour with Sharon Saylor. Always seek sound legal, medical, and or professional advice regarding any problems, conditions, and any of the recommendations you see, hear, or read here on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio. Now, we don't want you to worry about taking too many notes, so you can join the Autoimmune Hour's Courage Club, and we'll send you the transcripts and show notes from every episode. Sign up now at understandingautoimmune.com. Now, back to your host, Sharon Saylor.
Welcome, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. I'm Sharon Saylor from SharonSaylor.com, and I'm going to dive right in because, I've had an amazing week. It's been a strange week, lots of weird things happening. But you know what? I've got one of my favorite people of all time. Met her on the show, and I just feel like we're soul sisters since I met her. And I want to dive right in and just let this past week be what it was. Okay, so that's the update from me. So let me dive right in here with Dr. Nasha Winters. She is awesome. She's been on the show a couple times before, and I just love her approach. Let me tell you a quick little bio about her. Her first experience with cancer was at age 19. She was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. Can you imagine in your teens? I mean, how scary is that? And given only a few months to live. The metabolic approach to cancer stems from her nearly 3 decades of personal and professional experience in the field of integrative oncology. She's a licensed naturopathic doctor, fellow of the American Board of Naturopathic Oncology, and she is a global health authority in integrative cancer research. She's a sought-after speaker, and she consults with physicians worldwide and has co-authored the awesome book, Metabolic Approach to Cancer. And I'm going to share a little secret. She has a couple more books coming out too, and I'm so excited. But one of the things I wanted to talk to Dr. Nasha about is one of the things I've bumped into a lot is how do we talk to our doctors in a way that they can hear us? Because oftentimes I find I might be labeled, emotional, or that's anxiety talking, or some other thing. And I wanted to find out from someone who's on the other side, how's the best way to talk to doctors so that we can actually come to a mutual understanding of where each other's coming from? Because I've been bumping heads that with a particular doctor in my world too. So I want to find out. Welcome, Dr. Nasha. Thanks for being on the show.
Always great to be with you and your fabulous listeners. Thank you.
Thanks. And I just have to point out, she looks awesome. She's on the road right now, and she is popping in to join us here. I so appreciate you doing that because I know you are just such a sought-after speaker. One city. So it's awesome.
One country too. So, so I'm really happy to be on U.S. soil in this moment. So it's good. It's nice. Yeah.
Fantastic. And that's to be sought after like that is so fantastic. I love the book, Metabolic Approach to Cancer. And I'm looking forward to the ones that are not, and I have to be honest, are not quite as deep.
Yeah. That's a good, it's funny, that first book, when Jess and I gave this to the publisher, they kind of, the whole transcript at first, they were like, this is 4 books, ladies. This is crazy. And so we really wanted to lay the groundwork for sort of a resource where all the information of where we've come from and where we are lives. And so this next book is kind of taking those Train 10 concepts, and we're not dumbing them down. We're essentializing them. Is that a word? We're going to make that a word right now. We're distilling it down to the essence of each of those 10 factors and ways to really test, assess, and address it within yourself, and some very easy day-to-day biohacks, as well as a few other more advanced approaches. So it's written much more like a little handbook for the patient. probably for the provider as well, because this kind of segues into our conversation about how to speak with your doctor. And then we do, for all those practitioners listening, we're also still working on the deeper dive into the very clinical scientific side, which will be a bit of heady one coming as well. So hopefully it'll hit the palates of everybody who love to read and learn in this arena.
And I love the book, but as I said, there were times when I had to slow down and sort of read a little slower.
Actually, I would be worried if you just said, oh, I blazed right through. It was simple. I got it all. I would be very concerned. It's a lot. That's at the time the book went into the publisher. I think that was 25 years of my brain downloaded. It's not something I learned in medical school. It's not something I learned in my postgraduate education. It's the combination of things I've learned from my education, from many conferences, from many experts around the world, from actually visiting hospitals and clinics worldwide. All of these things have informed who I am and how I approach my own care, as well as the thousands of patients I've had the absolute privilege to work with, and now the hundreds of doctors I have the privilege of working with.
I appreciate that. We'll get to the talking to doctors in a second, but you know me, I go down rabbit holes.
I like to go with you, so it's good.
All my listeners know that. One thing you said was all of these experiences are who you are now. And I look at it that way with my health as well. All of my experiences, I'm so thankful that functional medicine is a concept out there, a discipline out there now that actually goes back and looks at the history instead of treating the moment to moment or whatever's happening in your body now. I encourage people that when they're going through a health journey, a health experience, to look at it like the whole experience. Oftentimes, I don't know how I got here. You're like, I don't know. I appreciate that holistic look. That's my little rant. Okay, so I want to get into, though, talking to doctors, especially you being a naturopathic doctor. When I talk to my Western-trained doctors, oftentimes I have to sort of argue my point on why I only eat organic or why I do specific things and why I have a team, and that includes naturopathic, acupuncture, massage, and I do meditate and all of things like that. And sometimes I have to feel like I defend my position. And even with all my training, Dr. Nasha.
First of all, I think it's important for people to have context of our medical history. I actually just presented on this year at a big international naturopathic conference in the UK, where I literally laid out the historical groundwork of where our medicines have come from and where they are, currently, and where we're hopefully going. So Western medicine, or modern day medicine as we know it, is relatively in its youth. Okay, compared to some medical models such as Ayurveda, which is over 5,000 years old, Chinese medicine over 3,000 years old, the ancient herbalists, which date back many thousands of years, the homeopaths, several hundred years old, naturopaths, a couple hundred years old, anthroposophical doctors, 100 years old, they're coming to their 100-year anniversary. Really, most of the way we practice medicine today is about 100, 120 years old. And what happened when the AMA was formed and we moved into conventional medicine, we took a really sharp and frankly, I think, wrong turn away from what we'd previously been doing. From this vitalistic, holistic approach, we steered completely off into another direction. What I think is happening today is that we're kind of making a little bit of a circle back because research is catching up with, hey, now we are able to express why acupuncture works, or why this herbal formulation works and the constituents of it, or why this particular fasting therapy or this particular heat therapy works. We've got some of the research around it today. So it's being kind of nicely packaged into standard of care in a way that it hadn't been. We'd had this large chasm between us. And I think where we learn the best as healers, as doctors, the art of medicine, as scientists, and even as patients, is we recognize that there is something valid. And we talked about it right as this started. We learn things along the way and we hold on to what resonates and we let go of what doesn't. And we might revisit things that didn't make sense before that now do. And we might find that we are much more inclusive than we were, exclusive of, which in the last 100 years or so, we've been very exclusively keeping out certain ideologies and certain philosophies and approaches that have actually served us very, very well for millennia. Okay. And so that having that context is important. And then I think we're making a very interesting circle back around where we're able to actually line up the proof in the pudding as to why some of these ancient therapies are significantly supportive. And instead of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, let's bring it all in together and let's see if we can upgrade all that we've learned and bring it into the context and the adaptability and the flexibility of our times and what we hope to change in our trajectory of health and well-being worldwide.
I love that.
Right? And so that's what brings us to the context of this question of how do I speak to my doctor? And again, part of the context is that there had been this division of doctor knows best, doctor on pedestal, doctor in a whole different arena than patient. And the kind of hot topic in administrative hospital, business side of medicine today is, guys, we're failing miserably. The United States is 36th. Number 36 on the list of healthiest developed countries worldwide.
Wow.
And developing. We have even developing countries ahead of us in the game. So we have higher mortality rates than there are 35 other countries. I mean, that's pretty incredible given that we spend the lion's share on healthcare in the United States. So to pretend that we have it all figured out as is frankly asinine and very egocentric. So if there are still physicians that you're working with that think we have the best healthcare in the world, you need to fire them and get a new doctor. Because it's the doctors that are recognizing our shortcomings that are willing to come to the table and say, what do we need to do differently? And this is where the business of medicine is going as well. And it's not driven by crazy naturopaths like myself. It's driven by you, the consumer, the patient who is demanding something differently.
Absolutely. One of the things that I found, and I fired numerous doctors, as Dr. Nasha knows, and it's okay to fire doctors. You can do it without being mean or nasty. The thing that I would run into was that when I would notice one with what I'd call somewhat closed thinking, that I would approach the subject, hey, my acupuncturist, I felt this and that, and it's very complimentary. And then maybe I get a negative response or even a negative eyebrow or an eye roll. I would stop sharing anything else. And I felt that was detrimental to my health because I had just somehow felt embarrassed or shamed or something like that. And I want to bring that to the table from the patient perspective of, wow, I was just shut down. And although you, doctor, are still trying to work with me, I'm not sharing with you anymore. I'm not telling you the whole truth. I'm afraid to tell you that maybe I'm taking an herb or something that could be important.
And Sharon, I'm really glad you brought that up because the studies have shown for years now, over 20 years, that probably 80% of patients utilize some form of quote unquote alternative. And I hate that word because I think of it as collaborative or integrative or complementary. And even that word's a little bit niche to me, but basically about 80% of patients use a therapy outside of standard of care. And probably about 80% of that 80% do not share that with their physicians. So that sets up, like you said, there's a level of embarrassment or shame if they do bring it up and it gets shut down. That's likely never going to be a topic of conversation ever again. Frankly, that is what has also perpetuated the issues we have in healthcare today. It's a two-way street. So patients aren't trusting their doctors, and the doctors aren't even aware that their patients are utilizing or exploring these therapies. And it puts everybody in a dangerous position. And it puts everybody in a position where we need to learn how to grow and work together. And so when I think about first steps in finding and communicating with your team members on your healthcare team, you need to be able to express exactly what you're doing. Have a physician who's willing to listen to it, even if they don't understand it. And if they aren't, right then and there, that's a danger sign for both of you to move on and find somebody different. Okay, that's the beauty of the world today is it's a supply and demand. And the more patients that are demanding that type of practitioner, the more practitioners are going to have to step into that arena. So I encourage you as the patients to empower yourselves to do that. And that will make a lot more physicians step into this. Because now as my job has moved more into educating the physician, I now understand why they feel the way they do. They're left in the dark and they don't feel comfortable and safe working with patients. It's a very litigious time to be in medicine. And if something happens to a patient, it could very well be an interaction that the physician was never aware of. And that puts everybody at risk. But here's where I think things are going to change and why Jess and I wrote the book the way we did. Because when our publisher and when other people have interviewed us said, is this book written for the patient or for the practitioner? I always say yes, just like both, because we have to get to the table together. We have to be able to articulate to the patient how to understand their body and their processes. And we have to articulate to the doctor that there's a lot more involved than just the diagnosis or the tumor or the lab test, right? That there's a lot more wrapped around that, the complexity of that as a whole person that we've gotten very far away from in standard of care today. We've gotten away from how the environment in, on, and around us impacts our health and our health choices and our health decisions. So that's one of the important things. So I learned from Dr. Hugh Reardon, who initiated the Reardon Center in Wichita, Kansas, which is also one of the hubs of integrative oncology and IV vitamin C therapy. They call their patients co-learners.
I love that.
And I remember the first time I heard that discussed, back in the early 2000s, I thought that's exactly right, because that also implies if they're saying, hey, you're a co-learner, well, the other learning part of that equation is the physician, right? So that has been part of me because I was first and foremost a patient. That's where my journey began. And then I've spent the last 28 years in healthcare, whether it was as a certified nursing assistant, whether it was as an addictions counselor, whether it was in my medical school training and my rotations in a variety of medical environments, from hospitals to ERs to AIDS clinics to neurology offices, surgical offices, pain management hospitals. I got to do some amazing rotations, as well as my integrative oncology that I've spent decades and hundreds of thousands of dollars investing and learning more about to be here with all of you today. But how I saw it was I could see it simultaneously as both patient and practitioner. And I knew that the patient who is well informed will always have better outcomes. Always. If you are just simply being receiving of information or just receiving of a pill and you're not invested in understanding the why of your condition or the how to get yourself out of it, or even be asked to step up to the task of taking some personal responsibility and being part of your medical journey, you are not going to be successful. It just isn't going to happen. I mean, if you've had a car crash, you're unconscious, you've got a traumatic brain injury, please, for the love of God, be a passive participant and let emergency medicine do what it does best. But when we're looking at chronic illness, you have to have a co-learning experience for better outcomes. And physicians need to understand that as well. If they're not encouraging their patients to learn why, then that means they're not learning the why about the patient. So how are they going to know how best to support and serve you? And that also often implies, at least from the physicians I've met who are a bit more closed down, that they're not exploring their own process. So when people come to somebody like you and I that's very, very ill with whatever condition, they'll say to me, but I was healthy until I got cancer. That's not possible. And it just isn't. It's years of accumulated toxic buildup. Mind, body, spirit, diet, nutrition, environment, hormones, stress, mental, emotional, all of those components contaminate our mitochondrial bucket, the containment of who we are, until the body can't deal with it anymore. And everybody's threshold is different. And doctors need to recognize that. And they need to help the patient understand where they've come from, where they are in this moment, and where they get to go from here on out. And then it's a win-win. It's also much more gratifying for the practitioner when they understand where their patients are coming from. So here's a couple tips. As a doctor who sees patients with extremely complex histories, this is what I request up front. I request 5 basic labs. So I want to look at their CBC with differential, their CMP, which is their metabolic panel, and their trifecta, which shows me the terrain. And that trifecta is LDH, sed rate, and C-reactive protein. Those 5 simple blood tests, if you don't have somebody running them for you, pay out of pocket, go to a walk-in lab, spend less than $100, right? You can do this yourself. That information gives us a great look into your overall immune function. It gives us a look into your organ function. It gives us a look into your inflammatory and your metabolic function in a pretty profound and significant way. And so having that information, you as a patient can learn about what those 5 labs mean for you just by going online on your own. So you already have constructed in your mind your own, hey, I think I've got X, Y, and Z going on. I want to dig deeper. So you're doing a little bit of preemptive self-care that shows the doctor I'm serious, I've done my research, and I want to co-partner and co-learn with you on this process.
I think it's important to say from the get-go, I'm co-partnering here. It's my healing experience. And judging by their response from that moment, whether you're going to stay as a co-partner or not. And like I said, it's fine to say, hey, this isn't working for either of us.
For either. And that's just the key, is you as the patient, until we have enough doctors trained and thinking in this way and approaching it this way, you're going to have to take the initiative.
You can say, hey, this isn't working for either of us. And every doctor that I've said that to, I could almost see this wave of relief over them. They just, for whatever reason, they didn't.
Right? It's like next. Instead, like you could literally come to that moment.
It is.
So the other thing that's very helpful for somebody like me, especially if you're someone with a very chronically ill history, I always request a chronology. And I want the chronology of significant life events. So even if it was that you were, let's say, a child of rape, okay, that is a significant event, even if it wasn't directly related to you, it was related to the stress of your mom and you in vitro. So if you know that history, or if you know even the next couple of generations out from you's history, weave that into the chronology, because they often play in as we're learning in the world of epigenetics. But definitely okay, at 3 years old, I had to have my tonsils out because of X, Y. Those are significant moments, significant symptoms, significant changes, transitions, traumas in your life. All of these play a role. And when you sort of bullet point them, or some of my patients are savvy enough to create a timeline. I'm not. I'd like to give it to me in a list. I'm totally good with that. That also helps the patient get organized and start to make aha moments. Maybe they come through and star a moment of oh my gosh, that's right. I remember I felt great until this moment, or things really changed at this moment. It brings an aha and awareness to the patient as well. And as the clinician, we can look at this some patients have 3 to 4 pages of these lists, but we can see that in real time, and it works nicely in our brain when we have short times to interact. Between that and those labs, and a good intake form that has your personal family history, medical history, we can know so much about you before you walk in that door. So what that also pushes the physician to do is, please do not look at the chart for the very first time when that patient is sitting in front of you. Take 10 minutes before that session. Come in an hour. If you've got 10 patients that day, come in, an hour before and review each chart, and maybe highlight a few key points that you want to address in that 7-minute face-to-face or 15-minute face-to-face, or however long you have the privilege of getting with that person, to know that you've paid attention. Because I will tell you this, as a patient, when a doctor says, I noticed when you were 14 that you had cryotherapy for cervical dysplasia, that tells me you've had a viral pattern going on for some time. The look of dismay on a patient's face when they recognize you took the time to read about them, that you put some dots together for them that they may or may not know, is incredibly healing right there. Right then and there, you've created a rapport, and you've created a moment that is therapeutic for both practitioner and patient. And that's all it took, was a few extra minutes. So the patient doing a little bit of homework up front, the doctor a little bit, it actually goes much smoother, and you can accomplish a lot in a very short period of time. And hopefully as a patient, to be kind for the doctors in your life, we can't tackle your 45, 50 years of crazy history and trajectory in one short visit. It's going to take a journey. So I do remind patients that, so for every year you've had a symptom or a condition or a diagnosis, I explain to patients it's going to take at least a month for every year you've had in your healing. So if it's taking you 20 years to have that symptom addressed, it's going to take you a good 20 months to start to really see resolution. So it's a time to ask for patience of the patient as well, that this is a process. It's not an event. It didn't come on overnight, and it won't go away overnight.
Since we're talking about time, when Nasha and I get together, we blew right past that quick commercial break. So we'll be right back. I've got so many more questions.
Life Interrupted Radio will return after these messages from our sponsors. It's great sponsors like these that keep this show coming to you every week. Be sure and stop by lifeinterruptedradio.com to learn more.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living. A chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Listen and imagine. It takes 5 seconds to send a text, and for those 5 seconds, you're driving blind. Life is worth more than a text. Stay alive. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Sharon, and of course you know me from here on the Autoimmune Hour. Maybe you don't know I'm also an author. My latest book is for kids. It's Pinky Chenille and the Rainbow Hunters, a winner of a 5-star Reader's Favorite Review. It's perfect for your early reader and a great bedtime story for your young adventurers. Check it out over at pinkychenille.com. That's PinkyChenille.com. See you there. Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. I'm Sharon Saylor from SharonSaylor.com, and tonight we're here with Dr. Nasha Winters, and she is absolutely sharing with us amazing information I have wanted to know for so long. She is the author of The Metabolic Approach to Cancer. We've had her on the show before about the book. Check out those recordings, because tonight she agreed to talk to us about an entirely different subject, and that is, how do you talk to your doctor? And I appreciate that so much, that we're saying we didn't get here overnight. We can't, download our being to our doctor overnight. I do appreciate that over time, I have found certain doctors more willing to listen and remember, and also not, I'll say poo-poo. I had a doctor say to me something to the effect of, "You have anxiety." This great big boom, "You have anxiety." And I looked at them and said, "No, I have situational anxiety. I can go talk to 100, 500, 1,000 people. I do not have anxiety. I can go do this. I do not have anxiety." However, when you're telling me about this life-altering drug and I read possible common side effects, I get anxiety.
And this is a really good point. When we as healthcare providers, this is something we need to be cognizant of. When we say, you have boom, you have this, I try very hard to remember my language, because some people's threshold is more tolerable than others, right? I can say to someone, you've got some patterns that look like there's a lot of inflammation going on, and that can send someone over the edge, right? And then I can say to somebody else, you're cancering like a mofo, and they're fine. They're like, yep, I know. What can we do about it, right? So this is the place where, in leaning in and knowing your patient, you also get to know their sort of comfort level of how you communicate with them. But ultimately, this is always a process. It's never an event, which then implies that it's very dynamic and it can change on a dime and on a whim. And so I really like to empower my patient to understand, hey, right now, this is what we're looking at. This is the patterns. These are the tendencies. And this is what it's going to take for us to move through them. But we're going to keep checking in and making sure we're moving in the right direction. And if we're not, we'll adjust course and keep on from that direction. And that's whether I'm talking to somebody who's got an autoimmune flare, is recovering from a fractured bone, or is dealing with a cancer progression. This is the same tone and the same conversation I'm going to have with somebody, because it is just a temporary moment in time. And it can resolve, and it can get worse, and it can get better depending on the information we give it. And when you talked about the situational anxiety, often we take for granted that the fact that our response to news, the response to these stressors that are inevitably in our lives, is up to us to work on. is up to us, the individual, the patient, even the clinician, because the clinician's energy comes into this too. If they're anxious about a patient's diagnosis, it's going to spill over into the session, right?
Absolutely. I remember when I got my original diagnosis, the body language alone was telling me it was not good. I didn't remember the word, who knows what that meant. But,
her impression very loud and clear.
Oh, yeah.
That I remember.
I knew it right away. Gee, this doesn't sound good.
So delivery really is everything. And if you can put yourself as patient and practitioner into the same sandbox, if you will, like, how would you as a physician tell your child something really horrible? How would you as a patient expect a parent or an authority figure to tell you some really bad news? Meet each other halfway, because sometimes as clinicians, we have to say things that are not fun to hear. No one wants to hear. They're difficult to hear. But hopefully, at least people like me, I don't tell you the bad news unless I've got some answers, like unless I've got some ideas, some different ways we could approach this, right? I think it's when everyone's like, there is no way, there's nothing you can do, you can only do this drug. That is very damaging to somebody's will to live, will to become, will to overcome, and will to take some personal responsibility. So if you as a clinician, in fact, some of the best I've ever met are actually in the conventional oncology world who've said, it's not looking good. Statistically speaking, this isn't a great outcome, but I know you're not a statistic, and I know you're an individual, and I know that I'm here with you to look at whatever options we can to help find a way to stabilize this and hopefully turn it around. Isn't that so different than saying, there's nothing you can do?
Right.
Please go home and get your affairs in order. Eesh.
Absolutely.
And doesn't that somehow fire up you and the patient hearing that to say, okay, yeah, this isn't the news I was hoping for, but what can I do? What can I offer into this mix to help change the outcomes?
I recently added a new team member, and I was talking to her. Someone recommended her, so I made an appointment and saw her. She was asking me some of the background questions. Her questions were so interesting that I finally said, it may be too personal, but you're asking questions that nobody's ever asked before. Does someone in your world have autoimmune? And she said, I do. And I said, now I know where those questions are coming from, personal experience, which was very refreshing. And as we circle back to what you had said a little bit ago about, I felt heard. Yeah. Now, we were coming from a shared experience, which I don't expect every one of my care providers to understand, but it was so refreshing to feel heard.
If you're a person living on the planet today, you either have personally or know someone personally with a chronic illness, whether it's autoimmunity, cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, right? That's just the way it is. So it is a collective shared experience. It really is. And in the book, The Metabolic Approach to Cancer, Jess and I put together 10 questions for your oncologist, but you could scratch out the word oncologist and put rheumatologist or, allergist or integrative therapist or internist, because you might tweak the questions a little bit because they're very specific to some cancer questions, but they're the same sort of thread of thinking, the same kind of common denominator of thinking in engaging your practitioner to really get a sense of where their comfort level is in taking a very holistic approach with you or not. And that's going to help you not invest unnecessary time in a place, especially if you do have something very chronic and very aggressive. You don't have the luxury of time often, and you don't feel good enough to say, all right, I'll put up with this for a few months and see where this goes. In the world I work in, people don't have that luxury. So if it's not meshing from the get-go, it's time to move on. And you said it so beautifully. There's no shame in that as you as the practitioner or you as the provider to have people say, I just didn't resonate with her energy. I would not expect everybody to resonate with me, because I'm also kind of known for being the tough love girl. And what that, okay, I should say kind of, I am definitely known as being the tough.
I was laughing.
Okay, so I'm like, So when I do, people are like, oh, like I'm not, when someone's like, it really hurts and this is happening, I'm like, well, then stop doing what causes the pain. It's like, come on. Like there's sometimes in time you just want to shake somebody by the arms. Guess what? I would have really appreciated someone pulling me out of my own BS years ago. But because I'm in it so much, I have that bird's eye view that people have to get to where they get to at their own pace. So I just keep gently leading them back to the path. And after a while, after a few gentle nudges, I sometimes pull out the big guns, and I've created the relationship and the rapport with the person to let that happen in a place that they recognize is coming from a place of love.
Let's talk about intuitively for a minute. I reflected back on one of my first rheumatologists, and from the get-go, I actually went to 3 with him, but I should have listened to my intuition from the first. He said, so what have you been doing? And I listed very simple things, but eating organic, changed my diet radically, filtered water only, better sleep, nothing harmful, right? Right out of his mouth was, in all seriousness, none of that is going to help. Now, my first response, because I can be a bit of a snark, as Dr. Nasha knows, I said, it's not going to hurt. However, that little person on my shoulder, the little evil twin, whispered in my ear, see, I said you could have had the chocolate sundae.
Interesting.
And I began to regress some because I was in pain. Both, it was traumatic to get the diagnosis, so emotionally I'm in pain, physically I'm in pain. And I started to want those comfort foods, where before I had been on that path of really running strong on, I'm on the healing path. And that one little comment made me do a left turn for a while.
You know, it's very interesting because if you had an addict in front of you, you had someone who had kicked, let's say, heroin, okay? First of all, we're all out there like, oh my gosh, that's so good. Congratulations, it's a big deal. What can we do to support you? What can we do to help you? You're not going to be at a party on a Friday night, you know, with this person who's a recovering heroin addict and say, here, you want a little something? I know you've worked really hard to get clear of this. Do you want this? That is the last thing you're going to do. Or somebody who's in recovery of alcoholism, or somebody who's in recovery of gambling. You're not going to dangle the carrot in front of them. That's not nice, number one. We do that all of the time in the realms of food and food addiction, and foods that we know can cause some harm to people on a regular basis. So we're like, what's it going to hurt if you eat that piece of cake? Guess what? I have celiac disease. I have rheumatoid arthritis. I have Hashimoto's autoimmune thyroiditis. I have massive IBS history. I've got polycystic ovarian, Hashimoto's. I've got crazy growth factors that are easily woken up when I eat too much sugar or take in gluten, which stimulates insulin growth factor that can kick up my cancer markers. That is deadly for me. That is uncomfortable at the very least. It makes me feel terrible. But at the very most, it can wake up some sleeping tigers in me because I know, because I've been watching this journey in myself for 28 years. So it is so disrespectful when I have a practitioner or a colleague or a friend or a family member who's like, that one piece of cake isn't going to kill you. And it's like, yeah, it isn't going to kill me, but it's no different. It's hitting the same places in my brain and the same places in my physiology and my chemistry that have the same exact trigger as heroin does to a heroin addict. So it starts a cascade of little digressions and regressions that I'm not willing to go there for anymore. And I think that we need to really alter our relationship with supporting people who make choices for their health around food or whatever, to celebrate that, hey, you're giving this a good try. What can I do to support you? Even if it's something you do or agree with or want to do. It's like, what? How can I do? Great, you need some help with tell me some menus. Tell me some recipes I can do to bring to your house for food to comfort you after this surgery, after this illness, versus here's your chocolate cake post-cancer surgery. I mean, it's such a weird thing in our culture.
It is, because there's so much social around food.
100%.
But
yeah.
It is interesting to me because even the question, depending on how it's asked, sometimes I'm a little startled, like, well, what can you eat then? It's totally different than, can you send me a couple of recipes? I'm happy to put them together or for the event or whatever it is. But that kind of what can you eat then?
It's again very much like kind of blaming, shaming. And it's funny, if you go out to dinner with my husband or I, or if you come to our house for a meal, I think people have a certain expectation of what they're going to be served or how we're going to eat. And when they see how we do it, they're like, oh, this is like normal and delicious and not that difficult. Suddenly people realize we're not feeling deprived in the choices we make. In fact, we're increasing our own health and well-being, and we're educating others, and we're educating like restaurateurs. And we spend half our year in Mexico. I think that last time we talked, I was down there. And it's so funny. We'll go into a restaurant, and they know now in the little town we live in 6 months of the year They bring us, instead of chips and salsa, they bring us cucumbers and salsa. Instead of, tortillas, they come on lettuce wraps. It's like we are doing, and when they bring us a margarita, it's literally, tequila with fresh squeezed lime and sometimes stevia if we want to add a little bit of that, or a little splash of orange juice to give it a flavor, or not orange juice, grapefruit juice to give it a flavor. But my point is that we're having an incredible Mexican food meal out, and everybody knows how to serve us and feed us. And then what's the best is when we start to ask, well, why? Why do you eat this way? First, they kind of laugh, like, you don't want the fries, you don't want the rice, you don't want the beans, you don't want the tortillas. I'm like, no. And then when they start to realize, oh, you're almost 48, your husband's 50, you look better than we do in our 20s, what's going on with this? Why you guys are always on your paddle boards every day, walking your dogs every day. Suddenly they're watching us, and they're seeing that we're not deprived in any way, and that we're actually thriving and happy and joyful and consistently that way, that creates curiosity. And the next thing I know, they're eating the same way. That's where our world should be putting. Like, maybe they have to observe a little bit and learn, and then they realize this isn't a bad thing. In fact, it's quite wonderful.
I love that, because I run into people all the time that are listeners of the show, or they've been referred to listen to the show. And they'll say, but Sharon, that energy drink, that's the only joy I have left in life. Or that cookie is the only joy I have left in life. And without realizing that that's what's part of what's limiting.
Yeah, that's interesting.
The joy. Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic when they say that to me. Like, they know, part of them knows that it's probably better. They see other people thriving. They hear other guests on the show thriving and doing well. Yet being able to take that leap of that in their mind, the one last thing that brings them joy is, and I can relate, but it's really tough to take that leap sometimes.
Well, I think that's very interesting how you say it, because I've actually had that come up a lot with patients. And what's interesting is that's right there, the clue. When someone says, that's my last joy, or please don't take that away from me, that's exactly where you should be putting your attention. That is the priority. What are you trying to heal? What are you trying to seek the joy in? What is lacking in joy or sustenance or nourishment in your life in other ways? And it's those questions that are the very challenging and even painful questions, because they might lead you to needing to make bigger changes that are well above and beyond diet. I promise you, it's never about the diet, ever. It's never about the food, ever.
Absolutely.
It is. Right.
Which circles us back around to the timeline thing about, you had mentioned putting on major things like tonsillectomies and stuff. Also put on major traumas, a parent divorce, a beloved aunt or uncle, grandparent death. Yeah. Those I have found it being exploring what we'll call the mental, emotional, spiritual traumas. Yeah. Have played into it. It's been like one big onion peeling here.
And I'm sure you've had the author of The Last Best Cure, or her most recent book, Childhood Disrupted, on your show, or have talked about her and her book. But that concept of the ACE scores, the Adverse Childhood Event scores. I have every client I ever work with take that test. And just to give you context, 64% of all Americans have at least one adverse childhood event. And that is enough to change some epigenetic expressions and physiological expressions and brain neural networking to offset some of our thought processes and kind of keep us stuck in certain patterns. But when you have 3 or more, you actually have exponential increase in chronic illness, including cancer, as a young adult and moving in. So to give examples, I share this without going into the details, but I have 10 out of 10 of those adverse childhood events. It's no wonder that my first diagnosis of cancer was 14, again at 16, and terminal at 19. It's no wonder that I spend so much time in my life passionate about people getting to the root cause of what's going on for them 28 years later. And I'm still working on it for myself. It's still no wonder that I get Shockwaves, which is one of my favorite books by, our colleague Sophie Savage out there, who's a cancer patient advocate and lecturer who wrote a book called Cancer Shocks, Life Shocks, about these traumatic moments that can disrupt your whole being, your physiology, and your way of being in this world and connecting with another. We really don't have a lot of room in our culture and in our medical system to cope with this. So it is the people like the Sharon Sailors and the Sophie Savages and the Kelly Turners and the, Donna Nakazawas of the world that are shining the light on these hidden pieces within us that need our attention. And when you come into your physician, perhaps take an ACE score questionnaire and take in your results. That might be another added bonus. And then maybe take the childhood disorder and say, I think this is really playing a key role as to why my chemistry can't respond in a particular way, And that if they've actually done the research and are stay on top of the literature, we know that every single time you have a yes to those 10 questions, you increase your risk of cancer and chronic illness by 20%. So that's something that has to be addressed. And it's not to say, oh gosh, I'm screwed because I had those experiences. It's to say, I had those experiences, so I had to do something about my response and my reaction in my body to those experiences. Again, it comes back to some personal exploration and some personal responsibility and finding what tools helps you get to the support of those processes.
Absolutely. We'll take one quick commercial break, and when we come back, we just have a few minutes left, but I just love talking to her, so we'll hurry right back.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Change and growth are part of natural life and also part of your spiritual life. Everyone needs support and guidance, especially during life passages. Upgrade yourself with the OMTimes Experts program. With OMTimes Experts, you have access to the best intuitive coaches, spiritual teachers, counselors, astrologists, and oracles. Our team was carefully selected so you can trust. Find out more at experts.omtimes.com.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Research shows we apologize up to 10 times a day, and most of the time, we say sorry as a response to someone else's mistake. What if we thanked people instead of all that unnecessary apologizing? So instead of saying, sorry, I'm rambling, you say, thank you for listening. Join us at projectforgive.com, a free, non-religious resource on global forgiveness.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. I'm Sharon Sailor from SharonSailor.com, and we've been talking to Dr. Nasha Winters, the co-author of The Metabolic Approach to Cancer, and we've actually been talking today about something very different, and that's talking to your doctor, taking personal responsibility for your care, and actually finding the right team that's right for you. Now, I always say right for you because, like Dr. Nasha, there's a part of her that's real tough love. That totally resonates with me. I need that. I totally get that. But, it may not resonate with others. So please, we've been talking about this idea of listen to your own intuition on it. How are you responding to this person? Is it the fit for you? Because there's plenty of different options out there. And so find the fits for you. And I also want to point out that I have a team.
Yeah.
I don't have just one doctor. I have a team of people that I go to. And each one of them are open to the fact that I have a team. And that's critical because we need to share with whomever is helping us at the time. Mm-hmm. I'm also seeing an acupuncturist or a massage therapist or, whatever I'm thinking exercise. I can't think what we call them, but anyway, the guy who helps me exercise.
Personal trainer and all those. Yeah.
Personal trainer. There you go.
And I love that you brought up the importance of the team because if you go to my website, drnasha.com, if you're on there for a minute, this little free pop-up comes up and it's basically the 5 steps of if you're diagnosed with cancer. Again, the information, don't let the cancer word throw you off. Download it anyway, because there's still juicy morsels of how this can help you with whatever your soup du jour is. Okay. And one of the key pieces is put together your team. This is so critical because not everybody has all the answers and everyone brings a different important piece to the table. So if you need the tough love person, you've got them. But if you also need the soft, hold me and let me whine a little bit and be really needy and sad, you need that person too, because we all have those elements. We have different needs at different times in our lives, and all of them are just as healing and beneficial. None of them are good or bad. We don't qualify those. They just are. And so when you are in that really soft, vulnerable place, you might need somebody else than when you're in the place of, I need a good kick in my pants to do something differently, right? So also that's learning, cultivating self-awareness and self-love in this process. But it does take a team, and it could be the team is a spiritual team. It could be a friendship team. I even have really close friends in my inner circle that are all as different as day, right? And it's like I got the girlfriend that if I just need to just download, I've got her. And then if I need someone who just like makes me laugh and I don't want to think about anything else, I've got her. And if I have someone who's just like, let's just go do something mindless, I've got that. We need, even in our friendships and our relationships, a different set of skills to bring us together. So I think that's really powerful, because when you come to the table then with that practitioner that you're brought on board, and you're saying, how do we communicate with the doctor? Keep in mind the role you're hoping they can fulfill for you. Maybe you just need them to be the person who's running all of your diagnostic imaging and ordering your labs and maybe writing your prescriptions. Maybe that's all you need. But maybe the person who helps you put it all together is someone who it thinks more vitalistically, holistically, and can sort of take the data and weave it into something that makes sense for you, where you're maybe the conventional doctor who ran those tests for you doesn't have that time or that skill set to take it further. Right? Those are important things to qualify. And if you really do struggle with food, looking at a particular food coach, or even hiring up like Blue Apron or some of those things that deliver these things to your home for meal prep, or doing it for you. Or maybe it's not about the food at all. Maybe it's that you need someone to help you understand your emotional relationship to your food. And your emotional relationship to everything in your life really comes down to that. So these are the things where you will start to become the CEO of your corporation. I love that. I hear that put out there a lot in the world of coaching. I hear a lot of people say, you need to learn how to be the CEO of your own company, your own personal company. That's really critical. And when we're the CEO of our company, we don't have all the answers, but we bring on the experts in each area that does.
Oh, absolutely. And I always call the CEO the Chief Experience Officer.
Oh, so good.
I am my chief experience officer. I am responsible for the experience of healing. And I like to call it experience journey, whatever you want to call it, instead of this ultimate goal of I'm not healed yet, which is so negative.
Yeah.
To we're on a journey, we're on a path, having an experience, whatever word you want to have, because each step that we take towards this process, including getting the right team together, being comfortable talking to our team, be comfortable interviewing for a team, is so important on that path, and it gets you one step closer. One of the words I'm using all the time now is I'm just optimizing. Every step I take is about optimizing, and then I know I'm that much closer to where I want to go.
I love that. I love it, because in my mind, in the world today, as we know it, and this sounds a little Debbie Downer. That's not my intention. I think it's just also realistic. I think on the planet today, given everything we're exposed to, from media to chemicals, to changes in agriculture, to a lot of wounded people walking around this planet, that it is very difficult to be perfect and to have complete optimal health at every given moment. So it's an ongoing process that there will be some days, weeks, months, maybe even years that you do it really well. And there will be other times when you kind of flub around, like you sort of started the show saying, it's been one of those weeks. Sharon, I've had one of those months. It's actually been this past year, just in all transparency, has frankly been harder than my cancer diagnosis ever was. Yeah.
Wow. You have so many exciting things happening. Awesome.
Those are the exciting things, but I don't find that it's helpful to air out what's going on in my personal life to everybody. But I do find it helpful to say, it's been a really crappy period of time, where this has been really hard, or this has been really challenging, and this has really taken the wind out of my sails. And I keep putting one step in front of the other because I know that this too shall pass. I know it is not permanent. Nothing is permanent. Health is not permanent. Disease is not permanent. Life is not permanent. And those are the types of things that help get me through this. It's like practicing a level of equanimity, practicing a moment of recognition that this is a dynamic process. And despite some of the darkness, that's exactly, I love the Rumi quote that the darkness is where the light enters us. Those little cracks in our fabric is where the light enters. And so as much as it's been this really tough year, it's also been one of the most exhilarating, busy, full, rich years of my life as well. And so I'm like, okay, I think, but in my world, I have to have both extremes to really get it, to really integrate it. And that's what I'm working with.
The duality of life. Yeah. That's our next topic, my dear. That's our next topic, the duality of life. That's the one thing I've had to come to terms with too, is the duality, the two sides. And how do we blend both of them and still be okay? Continue to optimize. And we're out of time, but I do want to share everyone how they can get your book, The Metabolic Approach to Cancer, and direct us to your website.
Metabolic Approach to Cancer can be found from Chelsea Green Publishing. That's our publisher. Also, my updated website, drnasha.com, drnasha.com. And then you can also follow me on all the usual social media suspects of Instagram, LinkedIn, et cetera, under Dr. Nasha, and on Facebook, Dr. Nasha and Metabolic Approach to Cancer. That's where I'm always giving you all the updates of the research and events that are coming up that I'm finding interesting, that you might find interesting, as well as on my website. There are tons of wonderful podcasts and interviews that are all for free, including several now with the lovely Sharon Saylor, which I love adding this to that mix as well. And I hope to see you all out there in the world. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Dr. Nasha. We love you, love you, love you. You always bring such a wealth of energy, excitement, and zest and educational tips and things we can use right away. And I just love it, love it, love it. Everyone, that's Dr. Nasha. Join us next week for another fabulous episode. I've got some great guests lined up too. Besides Dr. Nasha, I've got other great guests lined up. I'm so excited about those. And have a great week, whatever your adventures. Enjoy.
The information provided on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio, including the websites understandingautoimmune.com and lifeinterruptedradio.com, plus social media, is for educational purposes only. What you read, hear, and see on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio, and its websites, and other media outlets is based on experience only. The information should never be used for any legal, diagnostic, or treatment purposes. Always seek sound legal, medical, and or professional advice regarding any problems, conditions, and any of the recommendations you see, hear, or read here on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio.